Hello everyone and welcome to the Football Philosophy channel, and this is the match review from the Manchester derby. Manchester United 0, Manchester City 0. A lot of people saying what a poor game it was. I saw one headline in one paper that called it a bore draw. I think a lot of people are not grasping the importance of not losing against your close rivals. I mean, it used to be that we were chasing titles, and now it might be that we're only chasing fourth place. And the way we're both going, it might be that both United and City are looking to finish in the top four before I think City will snap out of it. But at the minute, they're a few points behind the leaders, just like we are. So I think it's vital when you play these teams that you don't lose. The ground that you can lose can be costly. The way you've got to think about it is you need to beat all the other teams. If you can beat some of the big teams, great, but not losing to the big teams and beating all the smaller teams, because there's only a big six, don't forget. That leaves a lot of other matches. You need to be able to win all your games against the other teams, or virtually every game, like Liverpool have done for a couple of seasons. I mean, City and Liverpool have been unbelievable for a couple of years, even beating most of the big teams, let alone the smaller teams. But if you can remain unbeaten, and look, we've not had a great start, obviously. We've already lost to Arsenal. We've already lost to Spurs. We've had a draw against Chelsea. We've had a draw against City. People that are complaining about these two draws that we've had. I mean, a lot of people were complaining after the Chelsea game. A lot of people are now complaining about what a boring game it was against City. Imagine if we'd drawn with Spurs as well, 0-0, instead of getting beat 6-1. Imagine if we'd drawn with Arsenal instead of losing. If we'd drawn those two games as well, we'd have an extra 2 points. Spurs would have 2 points less. Arsenal would have 2 points less. I mean, at the moment, I think Spurs are only there's 7 points. If they win today, they've got to play today. They're playing Palace, I think, today. So if they win today, there'll be 7 points in front of us. We'll have a game in hand. So that would be 4 points if we can win that game in hand. And then this is if they win today as well, of course. But if we're drawn with them, we'd have a point more. They'd have 2 points left. We'd only be a point behind Spurs, who are top of the league. So just getting points, just accumulating points, and also denying the team points that you're playing against from the teams that are around you is massive. It isn't such a bad result at all, that draw. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter, lots of fans complaining about United being set up not to lose, even though I've just said that drawing the game isn't a devastating blow. It's not a bad result whatsoever against the top sides. Obviously, I'm not suggesting they play in that manner against the smaller teams. I don't mind the format, 4-4-2. It was like a 4-4-2 yesterday. Obviously, he started with Greenwood playing wide right at the midfield rather than a wide right attacker as he normally does. Pogba was wide left of a midfield four, and McTominay and Fred were central with like Bruno as a number 10, or he played maybe even a bit further forward than that. But Bruno and Rashford were the two top men up front, if you like. So a lot of people talking about being set up not to lose. I don't necessarily agree with that. It's a little bit not to lose, but it's also in the manager's mind, and he should be instilling this into the players. It's your best possibility of winning the game. Because if people are complaining that we were set up not to lose, if what they're actually suggesting is that we should have played a more attacking game, like we did say against PSG and like we did say against Leipzig, if we play with a more attacking formation and with another attacking player in the team perhaps, or maybe with Greenwood playing further forward like he normally does than he did yesterday, the likely outcome is more likely that we'll get broken down. It might improve your chances of scoring, but it will definitely improve your chances of conceding. And look, just like we did against Leipzig and just like we did against PSG. So by setting yourself out to make yourself difficult to beat, if you can keep a clean sheet, don't forget, you've only got to score once to win. I mean, we got one against PSG, but we got beat 3-1. We scored twice against Leipzig, but got beat 3-2. If you can keep a clean sheet, you might only have to score one. And if you don't get that one, don't forget, I'm only talking about playing against the other big teams here. We've played all the big teams now, apart from Liverpool, for example. whenever we play Liverpool, I haven't checked the fixture list, it can't be too far off now because we're coming towards the, we're approaching the end of the first half of the season already. I think we've played 11 league games now and it should be 12. We've got a game in hand on most teams. So when we play Liverpool, I have no complaints whatsoever about us approaching in the same manner. And on that particular day, if it works for us, if we can get the 0-0, fine. But at the same time, if you can get the 0-0, you've only got to get one goal on the break. It can so easily be a 1-0 win instead of a 0-0 draw. So they're sort of setting themselves up to... They're not setting themselves up not to lose. They're setting themselves up to be difficult to beat. And when you're difficult to beat, you're also giving yourself a chance of winning it. If you're not difficult to beat, you're not giving yourself a chance of winning it, because obviously, if you're not difficult to beat, the likelihood is that you'll get beat. I'll re-stress it, stress it again. Only against the big teams. If you play such an expansive game, when you've not got the players that are as good as some of their players, which we still haven't, even though we're Man United, some of these really big teams have got better players than us, and they've been organised better than us for a while. At least we were organised yesterday. So I don't agree with what a lot of people are saying, that we're set up not to lose. We're set up in a manner that gives us our best chance of winning. That gave us our best chance of winning. If we'd have played a more attacking formation, it's more than likely we would have lost. Not more than likely, but it's more likely that we would have lost than it is likely that we would have won. It just puts it ever so slightly in their favour. So we were set up to give ourselves our best chance of winning. Why on earth he didn't play like that? I mean, that's in the Premier League with long time to go, plenty of time for things to go right as well as wrong. Things can go wrong still further down the line. But, if we can string a few wins together, as I said the other day, we're not completely out of being in the title race. I mean, that might be a long shot, but we're not completely out of it. We're certainly in the running for the top four. Even if we drop a few more points in the next few games, we'll still be in the running for the top four. So it is time to put it right. Against PSG and against Leipzig, let's be honest, it's like playing the last game of the season and knowing that you need a point to either qualify, whatever your target might be. You might need a point to stay up, you might need a point to get in the top four, you might need a point to win the league, depending on who you are. And we've gone to PSG, we've played PSG at Old Trafford, and we've gone to Leipzig knowing that we need a point to get through. And we've played an expansive game and got beaten by both teams. Why on earth it's taken him that long to do it against City is beyond me. And to actually do it against City after those two games, in a funny kind of way, as much as I'm saying it was the right way to approach the game, and I do believe, I'm absolutely adamant it was the right way to approach the game, it was even more right, if that makes sense, to approach the game against PSG like that. It was even more correct to approach the game against Leipzig like that. So not to approach those two games like that, because like I've just said, if we'd have lost to City, they're still well early in the season, there's loads of games left, we can still make up the ground, it's still possible. But in those games, without getting the result there and then, we were out of the Champions League. So not to use that style and that format in those two games was shocking, really. Anybody that saw me show the preview of the game will have seen me saying that we need to play like that we need to get players behind the ball. I explained that one thing that I said in the preview was we need to forget the press. There is moments where you think you might have a chance of nicking the ball and then you have got to go forward. But I did say that we need to abandon that press. We need to settle into a team shape where our forwards, I expected the two forwards to be either Marshall and Rashford or Greenwood and Rashford. I didn't expect it to be Bruno and Rashford as it was. But I said we need our forwards to settle back into a position just in front of the halfway line. Then you've got two banks of four behind them. And there was a thing shown on Match of the Day last night, anybody who watched Match of the Day, where they actually showed how United played. And it was exactly like that, with two banks of four that shifted across. So you've got four there, you've got four there. If they shift the ball along to one side of the field, they go that way, then they shift back across this way, and they all stay keeping the spaces. You keep the spaces in between yourselves tight. You know, only small spaces, and you all move across the field together. And they showed a clip on Match of the Day last night showing how United operate. And in most of those clips, you'll see Bruno and Rashford not too far ahead of the midfield. So it was a proper compact unit and difficult to break down. Some of these things were said by the pundits. Or by Ollie, perhaps. Before the game, Keane said, I don't blame him for playing 4 in midfield. He said, whether it's the diamond or whether it's 4 across, which it was 4 across, Keane said, I don't blame him for doing that. He said, they need to get a foothold in the game. That's a comment that I must have used a dozen times on different shows during the week. We're playing these games against the likes of Leipzig and PSG. We're not getting a foothold in the game. By a foothold in the game, you need half an hour to go by without them scoring, without them getting confidence. You know, inside half an hour against Leipzig, we were 2 down. Although we equalised, PSG also took the lead against us. It gives them a boost, you know. So we need to get a foothold in the game, and we need to let them know that they're in a game. We need to be solid. That's what I call getting a foothold in the game. Yeah, Keane said, I don't blame him for doing that. It's going to be 4 in midfield. He said, I don't mind whether it's the diamond or 4 across, and it was 4 across. The reason Keane's going to say that, he didn't mention this, but against Leipzig, we literally had 5 at the back. We had 3 up top, really, because Bruno was that close to Greenwood and Rashford. And then we had just McTominay and Matic in the midfield. 2 midfield players in this day and age is nothing short of a disgrace, absolute disgrace. On the team shape, by the way, I didn't really expect it to be Mason, who I mentioned on my fan cam. Anybody who watched my fan cam on the United stand, that I've not seen Mason play better than that. I've had somebody say on Twitter to me, Mason wasn't in the game. What Mason did yesterday was completely against the grain. He didn't go forward as much as he would normally do. He didn't continuously look to shoot. Look, I know he can shoot. He's got a fantastic power in both feet, but particularly his left. But he didn't just look to shoot when he got the ball. He was looking to pass and then looking to make himself available. And then when they've got the ball, he was quickly into shape and he was helping the fullback. I've not seen Mason Greenwood play. I think this is the best word. I've not seen him play a more mature game than he played yesterday. I was absolutely over the moon to see that he's got that in his locker, and I was well chuffed with him. So some people who think some people think I went over the top by saying I've not seen Mason play as well as that. I think a lot of those people probably think Mason's played a great game when he scored a great goal. You know, it doesn't necessarily equate. When you score a great goal, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've played a good game. It really doesn't. And Mason played a really good game today. Proper mature, proper intelligent, and I was well pleased with him. Another thing that was said, again, what I've said during the week. I said on the pre-match, on my preview of the game, I said at the beginning of it or early in that preview that I'll be happy if it's 0-0 after 45 minutes. You know, I said at half time, if it's 0-0, I'd take that. And then right at the end of that show, I said, in fact, I'll increase that. I wouldn't mind saying that I'll be happy. I'm aiming this at people who are sort of saying 0-0's no good, that they don't understand that they don't understand that that's not what you're aiming for, but you're hoping that after that you can get a goal. You need to get that foothold in the game. You've got to be solid. You've got to be competitive. There's no point falling behind in these big games. So I also said at the end of my show, I said, in fact, I'll increase that now. I said, I'll be quite happy if it's 0-0 after an hour. Well, I was glad to hear Gary Nevilles say something in commentary. On 75 minutes, he said, if you'd have offered this 0-0 after 75 minutes to Ollie, I'm sure he would have taken it. So Gary took that even another 15 minutes further forward than I did. Being 0-0 after 75 minutes against City, you can then think to yourself, if we nick a goal now, you don't necessarily have to start pushing for it. It can just happen for you. I mean, I can remember Bruno had a shot with a minute to go with his left foot from about 25 yards from a bad angle. He shouldn't have shot. It was a poor decision. If we'd have just passed it, you know, we were in a position there with players up the field. Just different things can happen for you, and you could nick it. So you don't have to go searching to nick it. It's just it can just develop like that. You still need to stay solid, but at 75 minutes, if it's 0-0, you might just take the odd risk more. And you could nick a goal and you could end up nicking the game. But I was glad to hear Gary Neville say that as well. After I'd said, like, I'd take it after an hour, he said Ollie would have took it after, you know, as I say, after 75 minutes being 0-0. Luke Shaw after the game, I'm sure he was saying this a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but the way we've been playing, it wouldn't have surprised me. He actually said, you know, we had to be solid. We had to be strong, we had to be determined, we had to defend well, and this is the bit that I liked. He said, playing against City, you could be 4-0 down after half an hour. You know, 4-0, I thought that might be taking it a little bit far, but you wouldn't want to be 1-0 down against City, and certainly not 2. But that was what Luke said, you don't want to be 4-0 down after half an hour. That's exactly, it's the same thing as what I'm saying. You've got to be solid. You take 0-0, you take 0-0 for a good chunk of that game. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer after the game, it may not be the best result, but it's the best performance in my time against Manchester City. The interviewer was surprised that he said that, and then the compare, you know, the host of the show was surprised about that comment. What the best performance? And Ollie said, yeah, and I like this little bit that he said. He said we kept them away from our box more. That feeds into exactly what I'm talking about. I said we need to drop back. We need to get the forwards just in front of the halfway line, 2 banks of 4. Let them have it in their half. If they have it if you let them have it in their half, they're going to have difficulty playing through you. They're going to start knocking the odd long ball. The long balls are easier for our defenders to deal with, and sometimes they go straight through to the keeper and things like that. They get frustrated, and we did keep them away from our box more, and that is the idea of playing like that. He said it was a tight game between 2 good teams. We needed a tight game against Leipzig. They're a good team. We needed a tight game against PSG. They're a good team. I just so wish he would have had that same idea. You know, for him to say it was 2 good teams and it was a tight game. He didn't say we needed a tight game. It was a tight game between 2 good teams. I'm sure he means we needed it to be tight because, well, that's the way we played. He obviously means that. We did need it to be tight. That's why we played like we played. So, Ollie, trust me, we needed it to be tight against Leipzig and we needed it to be tight against PSG. Sorry to bang on about those 2 games, but I'm absolutely devastated that we didn't get a point in one of those 2 games. And we could have done it so easily by being better organised and being more determined in our shape. He said we were defensively excellent. The centre-backs got some good blocks in, and the full-backs had wingers to deal with. So he's complimenting the centre-backs and the full-backs. But it was music to my ears, if I'm honest, when he said, I was delighted with the defensive shape. So he obviously worked on it. He was delighted with that's complimenting the whole team for defending well, not just the defenders, even though he started by mentioning the defenders. I think Gary Neville gave United a bit of a disservice after the game, saying it had a lot to do with City's performance and how City approached the game. Look, it takes two to tango, so to speak. United set themselves up in such a manner that lots of teams set themselves up against City and against Liverpool. And I just said earlier, I'll be quite happy if we approach the game the same when we end up playing Liverpool. But he put a lot of it down to City's performance. United have got better players than a lot of teams, and we've approached that game in a manner to make it difficult for City to break us down, and they did make it difficult for City. I'm not so sure City could have done much more, really. I'm really not. I think he's doing United a disservice. We made it difficult for City. A lot of our players are really good players, and when you've got good players trying to play like that, it's going to make it difficult for the opposition. I think Ollie deserves a little bit more credit than just saying it was partly City's fault. That's that about the game, really. Just one other thing that I noticed. We only used 1 substitute. I want to mention 2 things about this. I'm not happy with the way Ollie uses his substitutes. I'm really not. He just seems to me, he seems to get his substitutes wrong every week. Either too many subs or not enough subs. I'll mention the thing about the 5 subs in a minute, but first of all, just on Ollie's tactical use of the substitutes. You know, we're playing City, it's 0-0. We've got a decent squad, a good squad really. We've got some players on the bench who are equally as good, and in my opinion, some of them are better. You know, that's only my opinion, though. Okay, some might argue I'm wrong on that. But we've definitely got players on our bench who are equally as good. It seems to me as though he's fearful of making changes in games like this. Fearful of, I don't know whether he's fearful of upsetting people. When I thought Mason was doing a good job on the right, there was no reason to take him off. Because when he took him off and he brought Marshall on at number 9, and Marshall made a difference, by the way, we started to get hold of the ball more in their half. I thought he should have just been a straight swap for Marcus Rashford, but what he did is he took Greenwood off and he put Rashford on the right. And there's nothing wrong in a game with 10 minutes to go. When we spoke earlier about whether you should go for it with 75 gone and it's 0-0, or even 80 gone and it's 0-0. There's no point for 2 or 3 minutes, but with 10 minutes to go, you should be able to take that little bit of a gamble by just changing a player or 2 players with players of a similar standard but a slightly different style. Like we've been playing with a pacey player on the right, Greenwood to start with, then Rashford. Juan Mata's very intelligent, is a skillful player, and he sees little passes. It might have been worth for 10 minutes just trying Juan Mata on the right. He's not going to let you down. Juan Mata could have come in on the right. Van der Beek champing at the bit, and he's a number 10, and he's a different style of number 10 to Bruno. You know, for example, Bruno had a shot. For me, look, when I say for me, I'm absolutely adamant he should not have shot with his left foot from 25 yards from the corner of the penalty area in the last 2 minutes, and that's just one thing. So you've got another player there who plays the game in a different manner. Why not just change it up a little bit? You've got good players on the bench. You've got good players on the bench who are not going to let you down. You're not throwing caution. I'm not saying throw caution to the wind when it's 0-0, or even if you're 1-0 down. I'm not one for saying throw caution to the wind. If you're 1-0 down, I don't expect you to throw 2 or 3 forwards on. Just change a little tweak here and there, just player for player in the same position, and you just never know your luck. They've got a different thing to think about. And I just believe he should have done that. That's what I would have done. I'd have given Van der Beek 10 minutes at number 10. It just would have been different. And maybe Mata on the right, or just one of those 2 changes, just to give City something a little bit different to think about. And without us changing our shape. We don't need to change the shape, but maybe just change the personnel or one person, just to change it up. He did it with one player, a striker. But what I'm leading to now, on top of that, I just think he's making a mistake there, where he could keep the shape the same, but just change a player here and there. He changed one. I think he should have done at least one more. Which brings me to the 5 substitutes thing that the big clubs are fighting for, or maybe not fighting for, but the big clubs want it to be changed to 5 substitutes. I don't know if this has gone away yet, but they've certainly had this discussion. And the big clubs, including United, were voting that we should have 5 subs in the Premier League, just like they have in the Champions League. And the argument that they put forward is the fitness argument and the well-being of the players and the well-being of the players going forward, whether a player should be played for a full 90 minutes twice a week, as it is at the minute, and they need more time off, and they need to be able to sub him. You know, why does this argument not hold water when you're in a tight game? You know what I mean? Are they really, really concerned about the well-being of the players? Just as normal, he's focused on getting the result, isn't he? He's not focused on the well-being of the players. You know what I mean? He's only used 1 sub, and we've got 3 subs. So if we'd have had 5 subs yesterday, would we still have used 1 sub? You know, to me, I hope it is on the back burner now, but it needs to be put on the back burner, because the argument that they're using, the big clubs want it so that when they are winning a game comfortably, they can rest players. That's why they want it. If they're not winning a game comfortably, they just treat it like they normally do. To me, he actually bottled it really and should have made more subs. Tactically, he should have made more subs. Let alone the idea. I mean, are these players also, think of it that way, they're arguing that they want these players to be able to get a rest so that they don't burn out and they don't get injured. So what would be wrong with, say, giving Van der Beek 10 or 15 minutes in Bruno's place and Bruno getting 10 or 15 minutes rest? What would be wrong with Mata getting 10 or 15 minutes on the right where he plays for us quite often, and maybe Greenwood getting 10 or 15 minutes rest, or Rashford, or both of them with Marshall coming on? So they're refusing the chance that they've got to give him a little bit of a rest, and also not changing it up tactically as well. So I hope that 5 substitutes rule is just on the back. It's just gone away now. I hope so, because it's not on. The big clubs just want to use it when it suits them. That's that on yesterday's game. Obviously, we've got Sheffield United coming up Thursday. This is what I'm talking about. We've got to start. No disrespect to Sheffield United. I think they're actually rock bottom of the league. They're certainly in the bottom 2, I think. These are the sort of games we've got to win. It's a must-win game. I hope he sticks with the 4-4-2. I really do. People think it's defensive. I'm not 100% convinced by the personnel. Maybe Marshall can play wide on the left. Dan James can play wide on the left. Pogba played well yesterday, but it was horses for courses. It was a defensive role that he played. If we need a winger who can get round the back and create stuff, I think Anthony Marshall can play there. I think Dan James can play there. If he wants to put Marshall up top, look, Marcus Rashford wouldn't be my first choice for the left wing. But if he wants to put Marshall up top and put Rashford on the left wing, that'd be more like playing an extra striker role for me. I'd like it to be a proper 4-4-2 with genuine wingers on the flanks, genuine wide players who can cause damage. And I do believe that will be our best format for going forward, to keep it like that. It'll still make us solid, but it'll also give us the width will give us a different manner of attacking teams that we've not really been using. I'd like us to play 4-4-2 against Sheffield United with 2 wide players in the team, wide attacking players as opposed to defensive players. On Wednesday night, before we play Sheffield United on Thursday, it's Liverpool and Spurs. So this comes right back to what I'm talking about taking the points off the big teams, beating the smaller teams, but accepting a point off the big teams. Already 4 days later, we've got to aim to beat Sheffield United on Thursday. We've got to. But on Wednesday night, Liverpool and Spurs play each other, so they can't both get 3 points. So long as we beat Sheffield United, come Thursday night, so long as we've won our game, we will either be 4 points behind Liverpool with a game in hand on them, or we'll be 4 points behind Spurs with a game in hand on them. So that equates to 1 point if you win your game in hand. Or if they draw with each other, we'll be back to as we were on Saturday morning. We'll be 4 points behind both of them with a game in hand on both of them. So it can already swing round by taking that point against City. Sheffield, so that's Thursday night, Liverpool v Spurs. I don't watch Liverpool's games generally, but I'll be watching that one. And when I talk about team shape and defensive team shape, if you want to see defensive team shape, if you think that was defensive team shape that United played with, wait while you see Spurs against Liverpool. I think you'll see proper defensive shape with the Spurs game, with the Spurs team that night. So that's that. As I say, I look forward to that game Thursday night. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow afternoon. If you've enjoyed that show, please subscribe. Please tell all your friends. If you didn't enjoy it, don't tell anyone. Keep stum.